There we go.
Okay. So I have key concept 3.5 on numeral 3. And it goes over pretty much European imperialism, how Europeans were affected by non-European countries that they took over, and how people reacted like, to it. And next slide. So, people who don't know, imperialism is extending a country's power and influence through diplomacy or military force. And it really began before the 19th century, the 15th century, but in the 19th century it was more significant because it's when industrialization, all that happened, which accelerated imperialism. And the causes for imperialism was industrialization and organizations in the nation states. And your top powers would be England was the number one, and then France, and then you have Spain, who was known for imperialism because of Latin America and having colonies over there. And last was Germany and Italy because they came late into the imperialism game because they only unified in the 19th century.
Good question. I was getting paper. What key concept is this?
3.5 on numeral 3.
Thank you.
Next slide. So, first we're talking about diplomatic tension between the countries because of imperialism. So, when you talk about that, I'm going to mention the Berlin Conference. And this is when all of the imperialism countries came together to discuss how to divide up Africa. Hence my cartoon here, where Africa is a cake and they're each getting a slice. So, any confusion in boundaries of who has what part of Africa. And it took a while because they fought over who should have what land and they wanted the best parts of Africa. And a significant person for the Berlin Conference that was known for kind of his evil methods in controlling his area is King Leopold. He fought for his area a lot. Next slide. Next I have the Vashoda Crisis. It was in 1898. And it was a dispute between Britain and France in Africa. And France wanted to go further and expand across Central Africa and Sudan, but Britain wanted to link Uganda to Egypt with the rebel to go through it. And they pretty much fought. They didn't want to actually have a conflict, so France backed off, but eventually, but they like negotiated. But France ended up just losing it completely, and Britain's presence there was established. Next slide. And next we have the Moroccan crisis. There were two different distinct ones. The first one was in 1905, the second one was in 1911. And it worsens relationships with Germany, with the other imperialistic powers like France and the United Kingdom. And it is seen as a cause for World War One, going further in history. And pretty much Germany gets defeated in the first crisis. And then the second time, Germany tries to take Agadir. So, but they lose. And then moving on to people who were influenced by the styles of non-Europeans. And they were influenced by non-Europeans, artists and writers. So first we'll talk about Jules Verne, and he's known for his literature of exploration, and wrote significant things like Journey to the Center of the Earth and Around the World in 80 Days and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And pretty much he's known for the first science fiction, sci-fi writer. He was criticized because some people couldn't understand his concepts. Next slide. And next we talk about primitivism. And primitivism is pretty much a Western art movement that borrows visual forms from non-Western or prehistoric people. And next slide. So two significant people who did this was Paul Gauguin and Pablo Picasso. And starting with Paul Gauguin, he was influenced by Native American culture and Native tribes. So as you can see by his painting, features a tribe of ladies just passing by the river in nature. And then Picasso was influenced by African culture. So as you see here, he kind of accentuates African culture in just the body and inside. And Vincent van Gogh, he was influenced by Japanese prints. So one of his, he decided to paint around Japanese culture things. Next slide. And then another significant literature was Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. And this book pretty much talks about imperialism in Africa, and it pretty much goes into kind of criticizes because of he kind of did a parallel between London and Africa. Next slide. So next we're going to talk about imperialism debate, people debating over whether they really should be doing imperialism, whether it's right or wrong. And so first we'll talk about Panjern League, and that's their symbol. And it was an extremist, ultra-nationalist politician organization founded in 1891. And they pretty much went over issues with imperialism, anti-Semitism, just little things. Next slide. And then next we talk about Jay Hobson's and Vladimir Lenin's anti-imperialism, and this right flag right here is significant because they were against Marxism. Some images of that there, and Vladimir. And they pretty much didn't like imperialism and capitalism and Marxism. And now we'll go over how imperialism and the education they brought to these countries, and the knowledge and the education that they took, the people who lived there, they took the education and they tried to fight back imperialism. So one of the first Congress parties in India, the Indian Congress Party, they founded in 1885, and pretty much they wanted to establish kind of like a voice for India. And next we have the Zulu resistance. So the Zulu tribe, after Africa was divided up, another tribe, the Boers, they were migrated to where the Zulus live, and pretty much in this area was a lot of conflict because the Boers and the Zulus did not like each other at all. And they fought, and then when the British came in, the Zulu tried to fight the British, but because the British had better technology and weapons, they were defeated by the British, and the resistance was put down. Next slide. And India's Sepoy Mutiny, and it was violent. Pretty much the Sepoy Mutiny. Sepoy was the name of the group, and they had soldiers who would just attack British soldiers in the area, and it led to different types of massacre and mass killings. Next. And then China's Boxer Rebellion. So China, they wanted their culture to stay, and they were letting outside people, travelers, to come into their country, and this involved missionaries, Christian missionaries, and they didn't want people converting to Christianity. So they started to rebel and kill missionaries and stuff and keep them out. And then it was also by proto-nationalist sentiments. Next slide. So then you have Japan's Meiji Restoration, and pretty much it's the end of the Tokugawa shogun when Emperor Meiji came into power, and pretty much he kind of he restored and he fixed practical imperial rule in Japan, and it was a political and social revolution. So there was a lot of change in Japan to help them become better advanced in the time that they were in. Next slide. That's it.
All right.